What's up? It's Jobringus, your favorite inefficient reg. It's currently the evening of February 27th, doing a little mining. Oh, looks like there we go. I've been mining for a while this week. Last update video, which I believe was February either 4th or 5th, early in February, I talked about how my goals for the month are to get base 80 stats in, well, I shouldn't say base 80, but 80 fishing, woodcutting, and mining. So currently I am level 78 mining. Off to the side you see my old stats from the beginning of the month and my current stats taken from a screenshot just a few minutes ago. And I've got a little over 300k experience left until 80 mining, which, given that I have 2 days, I might make it. I'll probably miss by a day unless I really play a lot tomorrow or a lot tonight. I don't exactly know that I'm going to accomplish that, but that's fine. I've barely been playing the past couple of days, but I got some good progress early in the week. So I think I started with, 72 mining. I might have, that screenshot that I took might have had a level up or two since the video I filmed, but it should be pretty similar. So woodcutting was pretty fast. My method for most of that was just really AFK at willows and AFK them in Draenor and bank them. I did do a little bit of messing around with like 3-tick methods using the snow globe, but for the most part I stuck with just AFKing it because it's pretty easy to do, even though you have to click a little more sporadically than, say, fishing, because the trees get chopped down pretty often, especially since that's a popular spot. You know, pretty consistently I'd see 2 or 3 other people in a world with me. So it was pretty rare that I had a world all to myself, but it was so easy to do, either keeping it in the background or on my phone while, you know, taking care of any household chores, that that was a pretty easy grind. And I think I started from, if not 76, then from 75. So that was pretty easy, even though the XP rate wasn't that high. And I banked because so little clicking just to bank that it kind of seemed natural. And if, you know, if I did like the 2.67 tick stuff, did it really efficiently, then, you know, maybe I wouldn't be, couldn't call myself an inefficient reg anymore. Fishing was surprisingly more cumbersome than I expected, and that's really just because dropping the fish was sometimes cumbersome, but at least it was really AFK to let an inventory fill up and then kind of dropping them all at once. Did a lot of that on mobile as well, and a bit on the PC. I actually did experiment around a decent bit with, I think it's 3-tick. I mean, the like truest, it's basically like a lazy 3-tick method where I would use snow, and in the time between my like snow respawns, where there would normally be a few wasted ticks, I would just spend that time dropping a bunch of my fish. And I did see a pretty significant improvement when I would do that. So I didn't use it a ton, but it is a method I used a little bit, and I probably might will use it going forward when I'm aiming for higher levels. I still haven't tried out Eerie fishing, but maybe I'll give that a shot as well. One thing I will say about that method is that I think if I do any tick manipulation, probably fishing is the skill I'm most likely to do it with, because fishing normally has a 5-tick cycle and woodcutting has a 4-tick cycle, if I'm correct. So the kind of marginal improvement I see is way bigger for fishing than for woodcutting, especially since, again, for woodcutting I have a method that's so AFK that, like, even though the experience not particularly good, I think when I was cutting willows and banking them, it was probably like 40k XP an hour, you know? And if I paid attention to be focused, like maybe that would be a little higher. But you bank pretty frequently, and it's such an easy method that even though it's fairly slow, I didn't mind it. Whereas like fishing, you know, you see such a dramatic increase because you're saving, you know, you're saving 40% of the cycle. And then mining, I think I've talked about in the past that I tried like leather 3.5 ticking in here, and I found it very difficult with the clicks. This kind of gets me in a good rhythm where right now I'm not even holding shift or doing anything crazy with my drops. I just use sticky keys, so I have the shift key pressed down, and um, and then I kind of like put on some videos and get into a rhythm, or I do the same thing on my phone with tap to drop, and it's also pretty easy. Do that while listening to something or watching something that's not like super visually intensive. Um, so, you know, this has been, it gets like a little mind numbing at times, but when I get into it, it, I find it quite relaxing, which has been good. You know, although I am looking forward to this grind to kind of be over, you know, the prospect, I have to remind myself like to think of it with incremental progress. And I do find it a lot easier to break it down like an hour of mining at a time. Because if I think about the fact that I have about 6 hours left until 80, that feels very daunting. I've been pulling about about 50k XP per hour on this method, which you know, like 3.5 ticking. I don't know if the wilderness method has been patched. I know it was going to be something was going to be changed that would probably obsolete the method, but you could still do the leather, which would be like about 65k an hour. I don't have alts, so I can't do the wilderness method, and I don't really feel like building one. And then you could do like a snow, like a 3 iron snow method at like Alcarid, which I think if you perfect tick is something like 63k an hour. Maybe I'll try that out someday, since mining's already quite click intensive. It doesn't like add that much, but it's also, you know, even though this is pretty click intensive, I get into a pretty good rhythm. As you can see, I mine 4 here, mine 2, and then just drop 4 as I click this iron rock. This is a little wider resolution than I normally play on. Normally I play on a slightly smaller screen and put the inventory just a little closer to that iron rock, but I'm kind of doing this to fill out um, this like recording view here. Other than that, I think I did mention, at least in the description, if not in the video itself, that I would like to get kind of a side goal of 1150 total, which I think if I'd played RS the past couple days, it probably would be there, because I would um, probably be somewhere, well, I would probably be 80 mining already, and that would give me, you know, this evening and tomorrow evening to do a little extra grinding. So, you know, if I hit this 80 mining, then 5 more levels will get me there, and I'll probably just end up getting there pretty early next month. Prayer has not gotten any cheaper. If anything, it's gotten more expensive. The Runecrafting, the ring did not pass. Mostly, it barely didn't pass. It's probably like a 100-vote margin. But most people's objection to it was not, you know, anything about, oh, free-to-players shouldn't get something nice. It was just that it didn't make sense to them to add a new free-to-play item that can't actually be obtainable in free-to-play. The counter argument is that a bunch of the treasure trails items can be only obtained by purchasing them on the GE or from, you know, in trade from a member, even though they're not obtainable in free to play. But most of those are kind of legacy items. And so I get the argument that people were making. I kind of figured because of that, probably wouldn't pass. I would have loved the minigame would be free to play, even if it had like a pretty poor XP rate, just because the ring itself, you know, could make a dramatic difference. But I am once again holding off Runecrafting for a different reason, because a bunch of the quality of life polls that affect free-to-play passed. For one, the tick delay after Runecrafting is going to be removed sometime. I don't know how long that's going to take them to do, but sometime. I don't actually know exactly how it is. I don't how long it is. I don't precisely remember either. But I think someone said it was 5 ticks, which I feel like it was shorter than that. But you know, even if it's 2 ticks, um, like doing Barbarian Village or Barbarian Teleport, like body runes, you craft more than 100 inventories an hour. Like I think it's pretty safe estimate to say you craft an inventory every like 25, 27 seconds based on some of the math I did, if I'm remembering the numbers. The point is that, you know, if you save a second on that, you could be making your trips like a few percent faster, which means you could actually be adding like a few percent basically more experience per hour. When you consider how many hours of rune crafting go into the scheme of things, that could save a lot in the long term. And even in, in the short term, that could be an extra like 2,000 experience per hour, 1 to 2,000 experience per hour for me, depending how long that delay is. So um, even though that's not like the biggest difference in terms of raw XP per hour, the experience are already so low that it's like a couple percentage points increase is substantial. And I'm going to probably hold out for that. Maybe I'll still do like a level 2 somewhere in there anyway, just kind of randomly for fun, but probably not. Body tiaras are still way more too expensive, and unfortunately, this means that air tiaras aren't going to become like a viably affordable like alternative method because of no ring. But that's fine. I kind of had a speculative investment on them before, and I've still got some that I'm trying to sell, but I've already sold out a lot of them, and for basically a scratch. So that's kind of that. I think I said the prayer is very expensive, and because prayer is expensive, frankly, even more expensive, I'm probably going to hold off on fire making until it comes down in price too. But smithing has finally become more affordable just in the past 2 days. Adamant bars have come down a significant amount. So I actually bought and banked enough adamant bars to get 88 smithing. My plan is to drink dwarven stouts and just make plate bodies as I go, which I don't know how many dwarven stouts it'll take, but I banked about 100. So I should be set as far as that goes. I think they last a minute each, so that should be enough time, I think. Besides that, I think only very substantial stat increase that I've seen has been strength and hit points as a result. I've spent a lot of my spare time AFKing at flesh crawlers. When I'm busy doing other things, I often would go to flesh crawlers, which was also especially convenient when I would be fishing in Barbarian Village. It was pretty quick for me to just go to the bank and switch my inventory and go right to flesh crawlers. So I got a lot of strength experience. 72 to 79 is something like, actually let me see how far along I am in 79. So I'm basically at the start of the level, but it's close to 1,000,000 experience, probably like 900,000. So pretty substantial progress as far as that goes, and resultingly also got about 300,000 hit points experience. And then I think the last level up unaccounted for is just like a random magic level off of doing a little bit of high alching, which, as I've talked about, has been a pretty steady money maker for me. Bank, I'm not going to stop at the bank in this video, but the bank is increased in value probably by a couple million. I'll see how it shakes out because, like I said, I still have some money in talismans. I have a lot of money right now at adamant bars. But other than that, like, I'm trying to keep a lot of my cash relatively freed up because while I do still want to finish up this mining grind, I think I'll probably focus on smithing for as long as it's cheap afterwards. So goals for next month, kind of hard to say. This mining, 80 mining, will probably spill over into early in the month. And if I find AFK time, then I'll probably still spend a lot on flesh crawlers. I think 80 ranged would be pretty cool, but I would sacrifice all of that for smithing experience if adamant bars continue to be relatively cheap. They were like 2,000 for much of the month, maybe like getting as low as like 1960, which is pretty close to break-even XP. And then all of a sudden they came down to like trading in the 1950s, which is break-even XP. And earlier I saw them as low as like 1920, which is about, I believe, about half a GP per XP profit. So, that kind of thing adds up a lot over the course of several million smithing experience. And like I said, if they continue to be affordable, I'll basically smith as much as I can, and I'll be allocating on the way. So, if I get a lot of smithing XP, could easily see like 78, 79, even 80 magic. I'm not that close to a level up, but I'm probably about halfway in between. Maybe like 1/3 of the way to the next level. So it could happen. I'm not going to set a particular goal with that either. A lot of it will depend on how much RS I play, but it would be really cool to get into the high 90s for smithing, or at least like 92, kind of the halfway mark. So we'll see. Basically, it's going to shake out based on GE prices, and also if prayer XP becomes really cheap again. If big bones crash back down to like 120, then I'll probably go for 70 prayer and like 80 fire making. Especially if Vile Ashes come down, but that's like probably not going to happen. The other big free-to-play quality of life is that Bryophyta's essence and staff are going to become free-to-play. Besides the stat bonus, I don't think that's like particularly useful for me. From the like money perspective, the amount I would spend on fire runes, suppose I used it for allocating, the amount I would spend on fire runes would pretty much be the same as the amount I'd save on nature runes in the long run. But it still would be a cool item to get. I did get about 3, maybe 4 mossy keys as I was doing a little bit of combat training. And giant keys will also become stackable, even though it's really not the meta for regs. I do think it would be fun to try and try some of the bosses. I've never done either of them. I would go to Hill Giants, try my hand at Obor, get some variety training combat, and same thing with Moss Giants, especially since Bryophyta could be reasonably profitable with the essence. It probably won't crash in price terribly because it's still quite rare. I believe it's like a 1 in 128 drop, somewhere worse than 1 in 100. And even though it's worth like 5 mil, you have to remember that if the keys are also worse than like 1 in 100 drop rate, it's a really low probability of, like it's not like a ton of Bryophyta's essences are just going to hit the market. It's, on average you'll have to kill like more than 10,000 moss giants. Unless you're farming them in the wilderness, even then you'll still have to kill like 7,000 or something. So probably not going to be like a flood of Bryophyta's essence. So I imagine it'll keep its price all right. And the other thing is there might be regs who simply like want to buy it now that they'll have access to it. So it's a distinct possibility that it holds its price. Kind of a fun fact while I'm off on a tangent about economics is that I believe when mobile came out, if I recall, there were concerns from a lot of the player base that the price of bonds would skyrocket because players would play to earn a bond and then purchase them that way. But what they underestimated, But what they underestimated was that the mobile gamers are way more likely to just pay for microtransactions. So a lot of them would actually just buy bonds to sell them for gold, and then the price of bonds went down instead. So we'll see what happens. Definitely gonna try and get that 1150 total level. Depending how much I play, I might be able to go quite a bit beyond. I forgot to check my EHP. I think last video I had something in the like mid 200s, probably around 250 EHP. And at least according to Free-to-Play Wiki, in reality it's like lower because it's worse. I think maybe it was Temple. One of the sites is supposed to have a more accurate EHP rate for regs. But I think according to Free-to-Play Wiki, I have about 300 now. So pretty significant EHP gains. And a lot of that is because the methods I was training with were at least close to efficient. My woodcutting was maybe like somewhere between 2/3 to half of an EHP per hour. My strength was you know, pretty close to 1 EHP per hour. And so much of it was played in like the background when I was just doing other things that my real focused play time was not like insanely high. You know, what I'm doing here, this is like 0.8 EHP per hour, but I also have to be focused on it the whole hour, or at least very present. You know, I can't walk away. I do like shooting stars from time to time, because there's something I can AFK, but they're also not like that reliable to find, and the XP rate is still pretty bad. I think if I have a decent tier star to myself, it's like maybe 15k an hour. Just not very good. I think it could even be a worse rate. I mean, at least like a decent tier star to myself can last me at least an hour, but when you consider that that's like 12 minutes of me sitting and focusing, unless I'm really in a situation where I just like someone shouts out a good star and I kind of use that as an excuse to go decompress or get something done around my apartment, then usually instead I would just rather like put on a video and just mine on my phone for like 15 minutes. Anyways, this video less long than last month's, well, the beginning of the month's video, but I think I covered everything I wanted to. Hope you guys enjoyed, found it relaxing, and I'll see you guys in a month.